All right. Welcome to the Tempo Community Call, February 2025. The years keep on coming. They do not stop, sadly. Today, we are talking about Tempo 271. We got a decent agenda here. I think we got some exciting announcements and some boring announcements. As always, feel free to ask questions whenever. Not a scripted anything, I promise, as much as it might seem that way. So feel free to ask questions anytime, unmute or type in the chat, whatever you're comfortable with, and we will get started. And we'll always end with just kind of a general AMA if you do not have questions about, the current topics. All right. So I'll put the doc in the chat in case you don't have it. Doink. There we go. Tempo 271. So this has been there's been some discussion, I guess, a couple issues, a couple discussions in GitHub about a change we made in 2.7, and we are considering cutting a 271 to kind of revert that. What we did was remove network compression. So internally, we found the savings on CPU and memory to be worth the removal of network compression. But we're getting feedback from other folks that that's not working out for them. This Edgar fellow gave us a lot of good information here, showing the impact on their bill, basically. So it's easy to change back. The config is there. We put it in the release notes. Everything's there. But I think it was kind of a surprising change. And we are considering a 271 just to revert it, because internally we can just set the setting to whatever we want. We do attempt to generally align defaults with, kind of our experience in cloud, because we assume those defaults will scale and will work for most people. And that's why we made this change. But this one in particular, I think, is impacting more people than we realized. And I think there's a strong chance of a 271 that undoes this, essentially. So Edgar posted what their bandwidth bill was, what it changed to because of 2.7, obviously larger. I can probably zoom in on that. And then they tried Snappy, which is the default in 2.6. And then they tried ZSCD, which I don't know if that's ever been the default, but that's just a more CPU heavy and better compression, like tighter compression algorithm than Snappy. Does anyone have an opinion? I know that's kind of a broad question. I don't know if has anyone been impacted by this? Has anyone noticed? If there's no strong feelings here, I think at this point I'm kind of inclined to just cut the 271 to help folks, to make it more visible. We put it in the release notes, but the 271 would definitely bring some visibility to this and help people see what options were available, and maybe bring, I don't want people to get surprise bills, basically, because they're running Tempo. All right. Network saving, compression was a cost savings to us as well. Okay. Yeah, and I think those people are paying close attention. We gave them all the information they needed, but I totally respect some people are just like, Helm upgrade, and oh, hey, 2.7 exists. It'll be fine. I think it costs us, a little bit of overhead of time to cut a 271, but it's not terrible, and I think it's the right choice for the community. So I think we're going to go ahead and do it, and we'll again put some good information there about what options are available. I think we'll just go back to Snappy, but we'll link this discussion here so people can make the choice about if they want a Z standard as well. That's also on the list of available compression options. All right. Very cool. Okay, that was somewhat boring news. I told you some would be boring and some would be fun. This next one is far more fun. So we have had this in Tempo for 6, 7, 8 months. Grafana merged a PR to support TraceQL metric streaming. I believe the Explore Traces app also uses streaming, but this allows you to get your metrics data in over time instead of waiting 30 seconds or whatever, and then all at once getting one big payload of information. So I love this because it just improves the user experience immensely. You're instantly getting feedback on the data. instead of spinning. You don't know what's happening. You don't know if it's almost done or not done or nowhere close. You not only get that data back continuously as it's running, but you also have a strong sense of how hard this query is to run. So you can see it slowly filling up or quickly, and it gives you good feedback on the weight of the query you wrote. So in this case, what we're counting about 400,000 spans a second. It's a rate over 3 hours, it looks like. Yeah, 3-hour rate. I think this is funny. We didn't know this. I didn't know this until we put in metric streaming, but you can see it fills in from the oldest timestamp to the newest. And it's because of just the way we order the block list internally in the polling code. This actually just changed with a PR that will be in 2.8 that we're about to talk about, where it'll order it the reverse way. So this particular video was taken when it went from oldest to newest, but actually in Tempo 2.8. No, my bad. Yeah, 2.8. And latest Grafana, you will see it fill in most recent to oldest data, and you can get this really nice streaming experience on your metrics. Very excited about this, as well as how it impacts Explore traces. I think it's going to be great for both. Technically, trace or metric streaming exists in 2.7, but there's some nasty bugs in there that we did not realize until we put this in Grafana, and so it really is not going to be fully functional until 2.8. But yeah, pretty psyched about that one. Cool.
Oh, hey, yeah, I would like to take a quick poll. Is anyone using streaming for search? That's been in there for a while, and that feature's been out there. I was wondering, has anyone like enabled that or used it? Cool. Not sure what steps would be required in the Grafana side, but it would be nice if everything was kind of enabled by default. Yeah.
I don't think it's too bad. There's some docs out there we've enabled it, don't use so much yet. Cool. I think there's a doc that details it. It's in Temp or in Grafana. It's just like a toggle on the data source. In Tempo, you have to do that HTTP2 over HTTP thing. There is a nice doc somewhere out there that describes it. If somebody wants to find that, that would probably be pretty cool. It's a simple setting, a Boolean setting, that's required for Tempo to work with Grafana for the streaming. Cool. Back to boring news. I think I did a good job here. I went back and forth. Back to boring news. Serverless has been deprecated, was deprecated in 2.6.7, was deprecated in 2.7, has been completely removed from the code base in 2.8. So heads up on that. Thank you to Suraj Sid, our Duke of Deprecation. He has been working hard to kill all dead code in Tempo, and I am very happy for it. This particular feature we tried out, it didn't really work for us. It was more impactful back with the older search styles. With Parquet, we are finding it faster just to use the queryers. In addition, removing this is going to allow us to make one of two performance improvements. We haven't decided which in the query path. So the front end was generating, when it was generating jobs, had to include a whole lot of extra information for serverless to work that it no longer has to require. And so we have some choices there about how to reduce that. That should deliver, a little bit better performance because we're just not, the jobs are smaller, everything's easier. And Timothy Wolford gets the Community Member Award for the day for finding the doc. Good work. Thank you. Appreciate that. Finally, back to fun news, ordered results. So this has been on ask forever, I think since like the first couple months we had Tempo. For the results to be ordered, the most recent results, I suppose. So Tempo just kind of creates thousands or hundreds of thousands of jobs, shoots them all out to queryers, gets results back, and as soon as it hits your limit, quits. That's the default behavior, and will remain the default behavior in 2.8. But we did add a query hint with most recent equals true. That will force Tempo to exhaustively search the time range in order to return the absolute most recent results in reverse order. So I did a query before we started here. Here's a simple query from our dev cell. If I do this the old way, resource service name, Periscope gateway, you can see just random results, which is kind of the way Tempo behaves now. With most recent, it's going to require some extra resources because we have to search a bit more exhaustively. But now we have the absolute most recent in the time range. So you can see my time range up here was an hour on this particular day, 12:12, 2:12, the first hour of the day. And then you can see my results are in reverse time order based on the trace start time. So we can force Tempo to return to us the absolute most recent results for any query. For a lot of queries, this has almost no impact on latency. We were really tempted to make it the default. I really wanted it to be the default behavior. The problem is this query in particular, empty, no conditions basically. A no conditions query with most recent equals true is extremely expensive because it has to check. There's basically every single trace within a time range in order to confirm what the absolute most recent are. It's not quite that intense, but it is still significantly more intense. This is actually the absolute fastest query in Tempo now, and with most recent, it becomes the slowest and most painful query in Tempo. So that really surprising shift is one of the reasons we didn't make it default. I think we're still considering it. It will likely require probably an iteration or two on the blocks themselves, how we store data, maybe with some changes there, we could make this default. But we wanted to provide this as an option for people who, who wanted this feature. So this will be in 2.8, but it's just a way to ask Tempo for the absolute most recent results. Cool. Oh, shoot, did Edgar's case show up? We were just talking about your discussion, Edgar. Really appreciate the work here. We are going to cut a 271 because of your post and some other people bringing up a similar issue. We're going to cut a 271 just to go back to Snappy, but it'll bring light to this kind of issue that you've highlighted. We'll link to this discussion, and that'll help people see the impact of trying the different compression options. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right, folks. It's quarter after. We did not, or quarter till, I suppose. We did not eat up a lot of time, but we are open for questions. So it's kind of an open forum here. If you have any questions about operating Tempo, features, roadmap, we are here at your service. So feel free to ask anything you want, and we'll do our best to answer.
I got a question.
Sure.
We noticed in a future 2.9 release, you're including Kafka as part of that process. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, kind of decision making around that.
Sure. Yeah, I think if Marty does not mind taking this one, himself and Mario and Hobby have been doing a lot of work here.
Hey, yeah. Sorry, I didn't get a good slide or something like that, but just to talk generally, what we're kind of doing is aligning Tempo to a different architecture that will allow us to fix some things that are kind of like fundamental. So I would say the biggest thing is right now to run it in production with high availability and durability, you have to run it with replication factor 3, which means the distributors write the data to the ingesters 3 times. The ingesters flush independently. We kind of allow the compactor to clean that up by deduping blocks. But the problem is that's not very effective, right? So it's eventually consistent. It's best effort. What bringing Kafka is doing is allowing us to move the replication factor just to the queue of data that's coming into the distributor. And then the other components downstream can read that just one copy. So for instance, the ingesters won't have to flush 3 copies of the data to the backend anymore. We can actually just read from the queue deterministically, flush 1 copy. So in that sense, it's really good for TCO. It'll be really good for reliability because if there's any failures, like data's not discarded, we can replay that data. So it's kind of like a fairly large change. I I definitely were aware of the operational complexity overhead, but I think the savings will be worth it, right? Did you have any other or questions in particular or things like that? I'm not sure how much information we have out there before. Maybe if we scroll down in this community doc, there's probably some links and slides down there. Sorry, I didn't get anything prepared for this one.
No, you're okay. I realize it's in the future, right? So, but I think we're actually really excited about it. And it sounds like partially this has been implemented as part of Mimir and Loki as well, right? So,
Yeah.
I think for us, we've been seeing a lot of those context errors, cancel context in errors, right? That could be potentially making false metrics, right? So we're getting internal errors where there might not be internal errors, right? So that was a big thing for us because our SLO is dependent on that, so that we're actually applauding it. I'm more excited for it, and I'm kind of curious, is this based on the scheduling of how you're doing releases? Would a 2.9 be in the fall of this year, or would you think it would probably take longer than that? I'm more curious.
So I'm not sure where that was written down as on the 2.9 roadmap. I'd like to see that. I think we're probably going to tie this to a 3.0 release, but I'm not sure. As far as timing, definitely, I think that's in the fall is probably close on timing. But I think there's a couple things that we need to figure out as far as a migration plan to make upgrading easy. For instance, if you have a problem with the queue, maybe we want to turn that back. We want to support the old architecture that doesn't have any operational overhead. So I think there's some things that we need to figure out there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So there should be a 2.8 this spring, a 2.9 this summer, and then 2.10 fall, 3.0 fall. I think that's probably the earliest we could start talking about 3.0. We really want to make sure we deliver a solid product, basically a solid open source project, because it's going to take a lot. We have to fix a lot of documentation. We have to educate a lot of people about this new way to operate Tempo. We have to rewrite the Helm chart because it's going to have new components. So it's a big lift, and we want to make sure we do it right. And we do believe strongly this is going to deliver an overall cheaper, faster Tempo with the additional operational complexity of some kind of Kafka compatible thing. So that is the cost we're paying as operators. Okay, maybe you do manage Kafka in AWS. Maybe you pay any of the million services. Maybe you run Kafka yourself. But we believe the cost of that will be massively offset by the improved performance as well as the lower TCO of Tempo. What's up, Ruben?
Regarding to the Kafka, this is going to be a hard dependency, or there will be an alternative, like, for example, an internal queue or something. Or what are the plans regarding to that?
I don't know if we really have the bandwidth to give the old architecture as well as the new. Our intention right now is to completely swap over to the new. There may be, and this is not on the roadmap at the moment, but there may be an opportunity where we essentially write our own queue on object storage. That would be potentially 6 months to a year after we even deliver this. That's something we've talked about, but we really just want to deliver this. And then maybe think about later of dropping that dependency with some kind of clever, bespoke queue that we wrote. But I will say that's lower priority. Our primary goal is to deliver the new architecture with all the benefits. And we know this is going to discourage some folks, but we just believe it's the right path for the project, and we need to make it.
Okay, thank you.
But we are currently running this in dev, and I think really coming over some stability humps this week and seeing a stable product or project that we're looking to move to what we call our operational or staging, maybe for some people, cluster in the next week or so. Not to put a timeout on Marty's work here, but right. So we're operating it now. And then, we will hope to get to bigger clusters soon. And then, honestly, our internal goal is to start rolling this out to our production clusters this quarter. Pavel, what do you say?
Yeah, thank you, Joe. if there's interest from open source community, would you consider sponsoring that work externally to support the old architecture with the 3.0?
Yeah. We have a number of features that this community has supported and put in that we don't run, and we make it clear we don't run. So we do our best to balance what we need with the community. I think there's an opportunity here. We should really discuss this, though. We would want to make sure, however we did that, it would lay cleanly next to what we want to do. So I think if the community, or Red Hat specifically, really wanted this older RF3 and gesture style architecture, what I will tell you is certain features in Tempo will always be a little wonky, like TraceQL metrics. We're not calling that GA specifically because we need to go to RF1 to call that. So it would be, I think we would consider it like an unsupported way to run Tempo. But I think we could probably work something out. We should probably have a design doc, maybe have a sync meeting. Like, that would be a big enough lift. We would want a little bit more than just, in the past, Red Hat's done great work just through PRs, but this would, I think, take a bit more.
I understand. Thank you very much.
Yep. I'm on call and just got paged, but it's fine. Acknowledge. Yeah, anything else, team? Any other concerns? I recognize this is a big shift. I really appreciate all feedback, positive and negative. But I do think overall it's going to be the right path forward, and we're all going to enjoy it. Cool. Questions, concerns? Personal stories. I know you all just want to talk about anything. Cool. All right. I want everyone to take care. Thanks for coming. In a month, we'll have every one of these community calls will be more updates down this path, where we are, what it's looking like. Is there going to be a 2.9 or a 2.10? We don't know. When do we cut the 3.0? So stay tuned as we continue to provide more details. I'm going to ask Marty's team to do this. I'd love to hear maybe some good benchmarks like TCO savings or cost savings of different components, so we can kind of show why we're interested in this. Not for next month, but just generally those kind of updates, I think, would really help everyone kind of understand why we're going this direction. Cool. All right. Thank you all for your time, and we will see you in a month.